continuing to strive for reality. Now, what we're looking at is what would be what the camera would see. So if this was actually a real scene, you'd have that your camera set up and you'd be looking through the viewfinder, and this is basically what you're seeing. Of course, in a real camera, we all know that once a light source gets to be on the same level as the lens, because of the way lenses are created, there's going to be a reaction with the light striking the lens. And we call them lens flares. And so what we want to do, again, is we want to create reality. So we're going to create a lens flare. So roughly at around 510 is where that sun is rising in the sky, where it would actually be in a position where it would be shining into the camera's lens. So again, we're striving for reality, so let's create a lens flare. We'll do this initially by creating a brand new layer. And we'll go layer new. And just like we did in the radio waves in the last lesson, we're going to create a solid layer, and we'll give it a name, and we'll call it lens flare. So that way we know what that layer is, okay? And we're going to click the Make Comp Size button. Now, we didn't have to do this with the radio waves. I did it anyways. But when you do lens flares and some effects, you see it right now, it's like a dark gray color. Well, that's going to cause you grief. A lot of these effects work better if we do them over what's called key black, or zero black. And we call it zero black because we literally go to the RGB settings and change them all to zero. So RGB, all zero, which is also referred to as zero black or key black. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new layer that's key black. It's the same size as the composition. It's given a name. We click. Oh my God, what just happened? Well, again, you see the way the lens flare works is whatever the last active layer was, that's where it's going to go. So, again, we can just move those layers wherever we need them to go to create that effect. So, I mean, it really should be all the way at the top. So we're going to take it to the top. Everything's going to go black. And again, it's no need to panic because we're going to fix all that up. Now, to get the lens flare, what we're going to do is we're going to put an effect on this lens flare layer. So again, we're going to go up to Effect, and we're going to look for Generate. And if we look in there, and again, it's alphabetical, you can see lens flare. And when we click that, yeah, we have a lens flare. Okay. So you can see what's happening here. Now, obviously, we want to know where the sun is because that's where the lens flare should be. Kind of emanating from. So again, what you could do is you could basically hide that layer, and it still shows you the point, the center point. And again, you can see the flare center here. So if I use this tool here, I can basically go, yeah, I think the sun is right about here. I click, and now it updates that point. So now when I turn that layer back on, even though I can't see anything right now, I know that's presumably where the sun should be. Also, I'm going to change up here in this effects control panel. I'm going to change the type of lens. So I'm going to change it from a zoom lens to a 35mm prime, which is kind of going to give me the effect I want. And again, my playhead should still be at 510. So at 510, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a series of keyframes that are going to control that flare brightness. Now again, if you want to see it on the actual layer, you can by expanding and lens flare, and those are all the same properties up here. So now I can go to flare brightness, which is really what I want to do, and I want to create a series of keyframes to create the lens flare. So right now you can see it's at 100%, and I'm going to use this now as a placeholder keyframe. So at 510, I'm okay with 100%, and I'll click the stopwatch to drop a keyframe. And now what I'll start doing is start working backwards and then forwards. So now I'm going to go back to 327, which basically 327 is kind of just before the sun is coming up to that position. And what I'll do now is I'll change that flare brightness to 0. So basically it disappears. And so now I'm going to drag, and you can see, oh, there's the flare coming. Okay, that's cool. Now I'm going to go to 627, which is at the farthest end of where that effect should basically kind of end. And at that point, at 627, I'm going to take that flare brightness and go back to 0 because it went up to 100. So now you can see, it's there. And what I'm going to do now to just kind of really kind of emphasize, give it a little bump at about 6 seconds. And at 6 seconds, what I'll do is I'll just change that back to 100, and I'll drop a keyframe. So it'll keep the flare kind of solid for that 4 or 5 frames there. So that's giving me that effect of the lens flare. Of course, now, I need to see the rest of the layers. So to do that now, I'm going to play around with some layer blending modes. So now what I can do here is I got that lens flare layer selected. I can go under here, layer, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to blending modes. And blending modes is where I'm going to now change how this layer is interacting with the other layers. And I'm going to change it to screen. So when I change it to screen, it's going to throw away all the key black stuff in the background, which is why we call it key black, and it leaves me just with the lens flare. So there you go. You can see how that lens flare, the sun hits it, and yeah, bang, there you got this pretty cool looking lens flare. And again, all done with this lens flare layer, and it's key black, so I can change the blending modes, and that takes care of that. Okay, file, save as, and we'll call this version 8, and save that.